This is Svend of Baest. You're listening to Metal Nation. Stay heavy.
Hey, this is Rustin with Metal Nation, and we are joined today by Svend of Denmark's Baest, talking about their new album, Necro Sapiens. I hope all is going well with you. This has been a really bizarre year with the pandemic and everything, and that's got to have really messed with you guys because you guys are such a live band, and that's got to have been really hard.
But yeah, it's been a full year of not doing all the shows we were hoping to do. We've canceled and moved a full tour with Phil Anselmo and some shows with Benediction and our own headlining shows. So that's pretty a big bummer to move like the highlight of your career just to postpone that. So that's been tough. Yeah, but we were lucky enough to just crack on with making this record, and all of a sudden we had way more time than we had to begin with. So I think that really shows, actually.
Absolutely, and I want to talk about that a little bit in just a minute. But how have you guys, aside from the being able to perform live and everything, how have you guys been sort of handling this last year and everything?
We're lucky enough to stay in the same town here in Denmark, so we've actually been rehearsing every Monday and Friday throughout this crisis. So it never felt like the band was on a break, or as the live scene was. So we just kept on working and started to work on doing all of our merchandising ourselves and just getting really into creating this third album. So we've been keeping busy, and I think that's good. And we're lucky that we were able.
Right. Well, and so let's talk about the new album, Necro Sapiens. Before I really dug into that, I had to go back and re-immerse myself in Dance Macabre and Venom. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. But it really feels like with each album, you guys are sort of maturing and diversifying your sound and sort of finding your own signature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal, because everyone has a deep love for all the old school death metal that everyone is enjoying at the moment. There's a big ass wave of it. But we still want to do something that's our own. All rock and roll music is kind of romantic in a way that we're recreating stuff that's been going on since the 80s and 90s.
Right.
We try to do our own take on it, and I think we succeeded here on the third album with songs, for example, like Genesis or Meat Hook Massacre. That's a big mash of different influences, but some of our own melodic approach as well.
Yeah, I don't know how many people would catch this, but deep in your I don't know, your origins or whatnot, there seems to be a little bit of 70s love too, bands like Deep Purple and stuff like that. And it's like you wouldn't imagine to hear it in death metal, but you can hear some nuances here and there of stuff like that classic sound.
Everyone, that's the thing we agree on in the band, that Deep Purple and early Dio and early Rainbow is some of the greatest rock music ever. And everyone has a huge cross on Opeth's development, for example.
Right.
Not everyone's a fan of that, but we really enjoy the newer albums as well. So we try to do, a rock and roll version of death metal, I think.
Yeah. And so with this album, because there is more diversification and whatnot, and you got the growth we talked about, was there anything that you guys went into Necro Sapiens saying, we haven't done this before, we want to try a couple of new things? Did you try anything new that you sort of went in intentionally wanting to do?
We agreed early on in the process that we were not going to do anything because it wasn't supposedly death metal or would fit into what the fans wanted to hear or what the label wanted to hear. We just wanted to do what we found out, in the rehearsal space. So if it felt good and everyone enjoyed it, we were going to continue down that path. And I think Genesis is a great example of that, because that's a pretty a positive melody, and it doesn't really fit into a death metal song, but we made it happen. We made it work, and that wouldn't have happened on the first two albums.
Right.
So that was one of the things, and then we chose to do everything live in studio instead of creating the songs around this click track and that we had to follow. We just wanted to go and play as we do in the rehearsal space. That's where we write all the songs, everyone present. So just to see if we could track the whole thing live, and that sounded great as well.
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about before, I mean, it always should come down to what serves the song. And if something serves the song, it doesn't necessarily fit into the label of what you're doing, it shouldn't matter as long as it makes the song and the music better.
Exactly.
So, and you sort of segued to one of the things that I was going to talk about next. I mean, you guys had more time to work on this record because of the pandemic. If there had to be a plus side to anything, that would probably be it. And you guys, this is a pretty organic album because you had more time with the songwriting and recording the tracks live and whatnot. How do you think that impacted the album overall?
I think actually that made the album. I think we would have had just as good songs and probably a pretty good end product, but all the extra time we got just made it into a really fitting and worthy third album. We know we've always been really, really busy since we started out with playing and writing songs, and this time around we were forced to really dig into writing an album. And that's, I don't think it would have been as good without it, and I think that's pretty lucky. Again, we're always in some way or another pretty lucky that, you know, a world pandemic turns out to be a positive thing for us.
Yeah. Well, that's anything in life. You've got to find that silver lining in whatever's going on. Find the gratitude for the moment, and that was the upside for you guys for this. I think there's a lot more energy to the feel of the album because it is more organic with the live recording and everything. So, and I don't know that the album is a concept album per se, but there seems to be sort of a bit of a running theme. I get some Orwellian vibes in it. Tell us a little bit about the album from your perspective in that regard.
We tried to agree on not making a concept album because it's been a bit of a struggle the last couple of times, but I just can't help it. So I guess I started forming up this kind of story about the guy on the cover. He's the Tsar, and the Necro Sapiens is his slaves, actually. And then we have that's a guy. We have the Meat Hook Massacre. That's a guy about a mercenary, the elite, the Tsar and his friends can hire to torture the slaves, because, you know, if you're ever living and you have all you need in the world, you need to have fun in some different sick ways, and that's our idea that abattoir is about the parliament on this planet. And you know, I think we do better music when we have a big idea on what it's about. So we ended up doing another concept album, and I think that's just what's gonna happen, because, you know, we write songs and I just can't help myself but come up with stories and ideas about them.
That's the nature of who you, but you know, it works, and this is a great album for that. You know, and is it just me, or does the intensity on this album seem to build as it goes along? It's like the savagery and brutality escalates between the journey from Genesis, where you have some of that more melodic stuff at the beginning, all the way through getting more crushing and treacherous, all the way up through the tribal drums and into the opening of Sea of Vomit.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't actually, it wasn't on purpose, but I think we wrote all of the first songs on the album first, and then we just ended up with all of these titles, you know, for example, Purification Through Mutilation. We didn't have any riffs or whatsoever, just a kick-ass title. And then we sort of had to write a song according to the title.
Right.
And that's also why Meat Hook Massacre became such a blast. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's why.
That's kind of an interesting thing too, with like extreme metal, especially. It's like you watch most bands and they go in the studio and they've got like these weird song titles listed because they haven't written the lyrics yet. So it's like, well, we're calling this the Dio song, or this is the, you know, masturbation song, or whatever they want to call it. But you guys go in with these really, you know, bizarre titles up front and go, now we got to make the song fit the title. And it's really pretty cool the way that works out. And,
yeah, I think it really works out because, you know, if you're at a standstill in writing the song, you just picture the title and what's surrounding the title, and that might give you an idea for the next riff. And you know, that's how we do it, at least.
Absolutely. So one of the songs obviously that stands out in the midst of all that is Czar, and that song is like pure sonic obliteration, and it feels like you maybe stepped into another realm on that one.
Yeah, that was while listening to a lot of Domination era Morbid Angel. You know, just trying to go balls out on writing riffs that aren't necessarily only repeating themselves, or you know, not in a 4/4 measurement or whatever you call it. But then again, we always end up doing things our way, so it ended up with all the riffs being in threes, so 3 times, then you shift to another one that plays 3 times, and then adds up to 666 in some in some way or another. So yeah, you know, that's actually an exciting one. And Simon went really experimental on this one and doing his throat singing that you hear in this that he'd never done before, but that worked.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why I was saying you maybe took it to a different place on that one, because there was a lot of nuances that were a little different than some of the stuff that you've done before, Simon being a big part of that. And I know this is probably a question more geared towards him because he does the singing, but you guys sort of work on the lyrics and whatnot together. And one thing that's always stood out to me with you guys is the vocals, because despite the guttural throat singing, unlike a lot of bands in extreme metal, Simon's got pretty clear enunciation, if you will, you know, given the type of vocals he does. Do you guys have to think about that at all when writing the lyrics? Like, do you ever find yourself having to change the words so that they come through more clearly with the harsh singing?
No, actually, I did a lot of the lyrics on this one, and I just, you know, when I wrote purification through mutilation, look, I can't even say it. I didn't give 1 second a thought that Simon would struggle, and he didn't. I don't know how he's that good at pronouncing everything, but he's just always been. He can make all the different bird sounds as well. Maybe that's just a talent he has, doing stupid sounds. But yeah, he just nails it every time.
Yep. So, and on this album, you guys worked with Andreas again. He's become like the 6th member of the band, I think. What does he bring to the chemistry of Baest that works so well for you guys?
I think he knows all of our tempers, and he knows what we can do and what we can't do. So basically, when we're recording stuff, I don't think he doesn't ask us to do anything he has an idea that we can't do.
Right.
And he also knows when to ask us to experiment and when to leave us alone. You know, we had a full day where the guitars just wouldn't tune when we recorded Sa. And he was very silent that day because I think me and Lasse was super pissed. But then again, if we have a great day and it's super fun, he has all these different ideas on what we can do. He's always a part of the process from the beginning. You know, we have these groups where we throw all the new riffs on, and he listens to them and says what it makes him think about with bands and different inspiration parts. So he's been a part for so long that he's just gonna stay a part of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that marriage thing where you know when to be supportive and when to voice things, maybe push a little bit, be a cheerleader, and maybe when to just back off and give you your space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, I would never ask you what your favorite song on the album is because they're all like your children. But as a guitar player, I get this part of it. Is there was there one particular riff on the album, maybe more than others, that when you came up with the riff, you were like, you got chills, you were like, oh yeah, that's just sick right there?
The outro of Meat Hook Massacre, that's a riff that Lasse wrote that's inspired from This Mortal Coil by Carcass.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing the harmony part. And I remember figuring out that harmony part. I wrote that one, and it was just, I couldn't use my brain while playing it. I just had to feel how the riff was played, and then I had to forget all about what's happening on the fretboard, because then I wouldn't be able to play it. And that just grooves and harmonies so well that every time we play it in the rehearsal space, even now that we've recorded it and played it 1,000 times, everyone just starts laughing and grooving really hard, because it's just what we want to do. Like it has to be so melodic but still crushing, and I think we nailed it on that part especially.
Yeah. Well, there are so many excellent parts on this album, and it is just crushing and brutal and everything. But oddly enough, you watch your videos and you guys know how to have fun too. That comes through as well. So
we can't not have any fun while doing all this.
Well, hell not. It's heavy metal, man. You got to have fun. That's the heart of everything. So
yeah, you have to.
And people can sort of see in the background there when I'm talking, most of the cover of the album. That's a mind fuck of an album cover you guys have for this record. And I heard it wasn't the original cover though. What happened there?
We had another cover that wasn't pleasing for everyone, so we had to do a new one. And I was put in contact with Mitchell Nolte, that's worked with the Century Media before. They what's it called? They wanted us to maybe work with him, and I just wrote one small text about the concept and the idea for the cover, and he nailed it in 4 or 5 sketches, like super quick. And it was what we were looking at. I just had to point out that maybe he needed a necklace of eyeballs, and that's basically what I asked for. And then it just looked so sick. And yeah, that's really not a finger to put on that cover.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal cover, and it fits the album perfectly. So before we get out of here, and you sort of alluded to this before, aside from all the live shows you've done, you guys have been pretty prolific in terms of output over the short period of the lifespan of the band. And with all the downtime afforded by the pandemic, and knowing this record's probably been in the bag for a minute, are you guys already neck deep in writing for the next album?
We have a couple of songs ready, I think, just on riff basis. I don't think we can help it really. Right. It just happens unless I bring in riffs in all the time, and then people listen to the new riffs and like them, and then we kind of work a bit on them. But yeah, we're trying to make the whole organization super tight and strong. So when we get to go out again, it's going to be like really hard, and it's going to be the best for us.
Right. And that's probably one of those other silver linings with the pandemic. You're practicing and rehearsing all the time to go perform live. But when you're coming into the studio to practice, when you're not recording live or getting ready to go do live shows, you've got more time to play with some new riffs and stuff than you maybe necessarily would when you're on a cycle between touring and albums.
Yeah. But we apparently, in some way, we've been way too busy anyway. Right. I don't know how it is, but we just played a live show Thursday on Danish national television. We had to come up with the stage design there, and we're doing a lot of new merchandising, and the whole online shop is controlled by us now, and we had to work with that. We have some new partners involved, and we have all of the show business being postponed and renewed. So we've been really fucking busy anyway, and that's nice that it didn't just stop.
Right. Well, that's all great stuff then. Well, congratulations on the new album, Necro Sapiens. Fantastic album, absolutely ruthlessly brutal. Death metal fans and all extreme metal fans are going to love this record. Before we get out of here, just for fun, which member of the band has sort of the weirdest or maybe nerdiest hobby of all of you?
Oh, that's Lasse and Simon, because Lasse, the guitarist, he's a big magic card nerd. Like, I think in the beginning of the band, he sold some of his collection and was able to buy amps and cabs and guitars for the money. So that's super nerdy. And then Simon is a big birdie guy. So he knows all the birds, and knows all the sounds, and knows all the looks of the birds. And that's the weirdest part.
Throw that into an album somewhere, you know.
But we have to do an album about birds.
Nice. Svend of Baest from Denmark, the new album Necro Sapiens. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. Again, the album is just fantastic. Please go out, support the band, buy the album, don't illegally download it. You know, they can't tour right now. They need your support. And this is, you know, do right by the band because they're doing right by us.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.